announcement. We have Mr. Farrell joining us via Zoom from Florida. Hello, Tom.
Good evening.
Good evening. And I would establish a quorum. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Could I have a motion to approve our agenda that everybody had a chance to review?
There will be 2 additions under personnel for playground supervisors when we get there. So moved.
Give it a second.
Second.
Any discussion of the additions? Okay, all those in favor of the motion that is on the floor to approve the agenda, please vote by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to item number 6, approval of the consent agenda, items 7 through 9. I believe you've all had a chance to probably review the minutes. And tonight I was here for Angie to review bills, and Steve and Rich also did. I don't think there was anything there that stood out, was there, that we need to discuss? Okay, very good. Mr. Jorgensen, do you want to take number 9, please?
Yes. So under personnel actions, retirement, Charlotte Callahan from the high school office. That will be for effective at the end of the year, June 1st. Resignation of Max Hunter as driver's education instructor, and Karen Giles as elementary counselor for the end of the year. Max Hodgman as head football coach, and Kristen Morris as elementary teacher. I would say when we go to have a motion on this, we have the retirement for, or excuse me, the resignation for the head football coach to be a separate one, because we've always acted on that as upon the suitable replacement. So that would be a separate motion I would recommend from the rest. And then request to hire Logan Peckinpah. He would be for driver's education classroom at $25 an hour, behind the wheel at 21. Karen Anderson as a full-time kitchen worker, replacement of Wagner at $13.25. And then 2 playground supervisors, Grace Steinecke and Amy Uher, at $10 per hour.
Okay, very good. Let's go ahead and I will ask for a motion. Let's take the resignation of Max Hodgman as, once a replacement is found, his resignation of head football coach.
So moved.
Okay, second on that?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Yes, Rob?
No.
Oh.
Joel.
I was seeing who was second.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Other than sad to see him move on, but I understand.
Yeah.
And I get it, he needs some time for himself there, probably. Okay, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same
Aye.
sign. Okay, motion carries. And now to consider the other personnel actions that Joel went over. I would take a motion on that, please.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Lori, that would be all consent agenda items also.
Oh, thank you. All consent agenda items. Thank you, Tom.
I guess I'd like to just comment and thanks to Charlotte for the years that she's put in for us and has always been that welcoming face in the, really the district office as you come into the high school, and also for the years that Karen and Christine have put into the district also.
Yes. Echo that, definitely. Okay, we have a motion on the floor for the consent agenda items. All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 10, anybody out there that wanted to speak tonight as part of the delegation? Okay, and we'll go on to administrative reports. Who wants to start? Joel?
I'll go through just a few things again on our COVID number update. So as of today, we've had 220 positive cases. 104 were in elementary, 55 middle school, 60 high school, and 3 were district-wide. We've conducted 457 rapid tests. And Lake County now, as of Friday, was at 144. Now today they were lower. I didn't put that number down. So active cases were at 2 in the elementary, none in the middle school, and 1 in the high school right now. Legislatively, we're still filing a lot of bills. A number have been defeated, but the 6% still seems to be on track to be moving forward. We won't count it done until we see the last day, but right now the momentum is still there for 6% funding for schools. We want that to stay on track. There's a number of vehicle bills still out there. There's about 20 vehicle bills that anything could be dropped into it yet. And some of those are specifically set for education. Some may be for the exact levies at the end and some different things, or whatever the percentage is going to be. But normally we get to this time of the year and there's probably half a dozen vehicle bills. There's 20 plus right now, last time I looked, so that anything that's dead isn't dead until the last day, because it can always come back in a new bill. So we'll continue to track those. Like I say, there's quite a few of them, but the momentum has been good for the 6%, and I hope it stays that way. So that's what we'll be doing the next 3 weeks again, is just following, and we've had a lot of conversations with folks out here, and we'll continue to do that until we get to the end of the session. But right now, the 6% looks good, and let's hope it stays on track.
Mitch, do you have
A
anything?
couple items.
Okay.
Just as a note, our opt-out, we did the resolution last meeting. Put our notices in the paper, no one referred that to vote, so that is passed. There. Then our FLEC agreement with Madison and Prairie Lakes Education Co-op is up for this year, so we're creating a proposal for that will bring to them and then bring back to you guys in the future for consideration. Just let you know that that's something that's coming up. That's all I have.
And that would be continued services. We've done it for the
Yeah.
last 5.
Yep. You do it for the next 5.
Okay.
And then we have Mr. Reggie touch base right now with an activity association change that came up, or that they adopted for softball. So again, touch base on that.
So, not sure if you're aware of it or not, but the South Dakota High School Activity Association has been for a few years now considering adopting softball as a state-sanctioned program. That's going to be done, has been done. They're just trying to work through the particulars. So what they would like now is for schools to express their intent on whether or not they're going to be participating in softball. There was a lot of discussion on whether softball should be a fall sport, a spring sport. For a while, they talked about splitting it between A and AA and things of that nature, but it has been decided that all of the softball will be played in the spring. So just a little bit of background for you. We have club softball and have had club softball for several years, but that's been in the fall. This would now be in the spring, which would conflict a little bit with club softball, which starts in the spring. So we're not 100% sure how that's all going to shake out. We're hoping that club will back off a little bit and will allow the girls to have a high school season, but that's still all up in the air. Last fall, we had, for our high school softball club team, we had 17 high school girls who participated, and then 5 girls that they had from the middle school who would participate. My vision would be that if we do offer softball, it would be like a 7 through 12, so we'd have a middle school, and whether or not we played a middle school schedule or just have those girls play like a JV or a C team schedule and then a varsity schedule would be what I would anticipate. Currently, we offer track and field for girls, and we offer golf for girls in the spring. In the fall, we would have, volleyball, you have tennis, and you have cross country. So we're hoping that the move to the spring there's less competition as far as participation. We do have to weigh how it's going to affect our other programs. Is it going to pull girls out of golf to play softball? Is it going to pull girls off of the track team to play softball? How do we balance all that? But I think there's enough girls there who are interested, who are gonna play softball regardless, whether it be through club or through the high school. The club kinda season would be eliminated by this. So I would move to, or not move, but I would be in favor of us adopting softball as a sport. Looking at a budget, I kind of put together just a brief budget. These things are obviously subject to change. We would, anticipating the same numbers that we've had in the fall, we would want a head and then an assistant coach, especially that assistant coach to work with the younger kids. I kind of felt like it would fall under level 3, which is similar to, you got your high school tennis, high school golf, varsity tennis coaches. It would fall on there. So that would be $3,114 for the head coach, and then the assistant coach at $1,718. Just kind of anticipating, we don't know how many games are going to be played. We don't know how long, any of that. An estimate of $800 for officials, approximately $1,000 for supplies, $1,500 for travel, and then for the first year, we'd have an estimate of an additional $1,500 for uniforms. The current club softball team has a lot of supplies already. We don't know if they would gift those to us to use. If the supply budget could be a lot more if we have to buy 2 sets of catcher's equipment and all new bats and everything. So all of those things have to be worked out. But approximately that first year budget would be about $96.32. That doesn't take into consideration any of the benefits. Mitch kind of looked at that and said that it would be close, but when you add in the benefits and Social Security and all those things, it could be a little bit more than that. But I do think we have the girls to support this. We're not sure how it's all going to look when it's all said and done, but I would ask that you would vote in favor of that.
So basically what they're looking for tonight, it doesn't commit us to anything, but the Activity Association wants to know that we're looking at doing it, because they're gonna start trying to figure out a schedule. This is for the spring of '23.
Correct.
Okay. And the other thing is, I believe almost all the schools in our currently in our conference are looking at adding this as well.
Correct. And we don't, like I said, I don't know how many games they're planning to play, any of that stuff. It's still all up in the air. If the state would set the schedule, if we would set our own schedule, because if we play 20 games and we do double headers with everybody, we wouldn't even be able to play outside of the conference. So it's just there's a lot of unknowns. Like Joel said, I'm asking, they want our intent to participate by tomorrow if possible. If we say yes, if we sign off on it and say we're going to participate, if we decide after talking to more and more parents and girls that we won't have the girls to, or even next fall, if we find out that we don't have enough to support it, we can always back out. If we say we're transitioning in, and then next year we say, yeah, we have enough, doesn't guarantee us that we'll be able to play next year. So I guess I would say, let's say yes, we're gonna do it, and then if we have to back out last minute, we can back out with no penalty.
So it's not even, I don't think it's a board motion, it's just more that giving us direction that we can continue to go forward with this process, that we are looking at participating in the spring of '23. And then there'll be another formal time where we'll come back, we'd actually have to have a motion that we're going to do that or not. Concerns with us moving forward in this direction, I think it leaves more doors open by moving forward than if we don't. We can always back out.
Move, not to move to later, to
go forward. Sounds pretty clear to me.
Yeah.
And then if Mike gets more information as we move forward in this, we'll bring it forward. But right now, then the intent, again, we got to see what we have for those that will have interest too. And again, it's not for this spring, it's for the next school year.
A lot of it's going to depend on those club teams. When we originally talked about splitting it and having AA in the fall and A and B in the spring, we kind of said, well, if you do that, then the club teams are still going to play in the spring because they'll have girls. We're hoping by everybody playing in the spring, they'll at least back their season off a little bit and allow us to get our high school season in before they start club. But there's no guarantees on any of that.
Because kids won't be able to be in both
Correct.
club and the high school one at the same time. Once the high school season's over,
But they can do softball and volleyball club,
Yeah.
but they can't do softball high school and softball club.
can't do the same sport at
That's
the same
against
time.
the Activity Association guidelines.
Is there a possibility you could do track and softball?
That is, we do give kids that option to be able to participate in 2 sports. We don't have it happen very often because it's hard, you know, but in the past, I know we had 2 boys that did both cross-country and football. We've had people that have done, a lot of boys do baseball and track in the spring, but baseball's not a sanctioned sport, but they do make it work. It gets a little bit different when it's a sanctioned sport because now everybody wants equal practice time, everything. So those concerns are there, but I think we can make it work if we just get all the coaches to cooperate with each
Case by case basis, because
Correct.
that leaves less time for homework.
Yep, absolutely.
Would we have facility rentals that we'd have to worry about?
Talking to the city of Madison, their park and rec guy, they said that we'd be able to use their fields. There may be some small fees for chalk, you know, but as far as rent for the field, there would be none of that.
Good.
And then we do, just as a reminder, as part of our agreement with Dakota State University, if and when they get their softball diamond built, we would have access to that as part of our agreement.
Any other questions for Mr. Ricky on this? If not, that's the direction we plan on going.
Makes sense.
Okay,
So
thank you.
the next time we would possibly hear from you then is if everything is worked out and you want to propose that we bring it on as a
And we have to include it in the budget. and
Okay,
things
then-
like that.
okay.
But we're giving you permission to commit to not commit.
Yes, we're gonna commit to not commit.
Commit to move forward as if we're going to, hopefully.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I'm sure everybody else does. I'm just messing with you.
I expect nothing less.
Okay, then we will move on. I believe that's it for administrative reports. Okay. Number 12, present the board members with appreciation.
Board members with ASPSD, February is Board Recognition Month. And I had a little spiel to read to you, but since that's on my desk, I'm just going to tell you it's ASPSD's Board Recognition Month, thanking you for all you do for the students of Madison and for your work across the state as well through the ASPSD organization. So on behalf of ASPSD, I'm going to present you all with a certificate, appreciation for all that you do.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Hot off the press too, it looks like, February 14. Awesome. Okay, we will move on to number 13, the South Dakota Comprehensive Plan. And is Ms. Kingring going to fill us in on that?
She is.
Sure.
Yep.
It is the regulations for special ed. There are no changes from last year. The only change that may be forthcoming is one of the eligibility categories is called emotional disturbance. They're looking at changing that with support from the SPED directors and school psychologists to emotional disability. Sounds better.
Sounds good.
Yes.
It's a yearly process that we have to
Yeah.
approve, but we have a place. If there's a change, like you said, then she'll bring that forward, we'll make that
Yeah,
change.
to
as well.
emotional disability.
Emotional disability.
All right. May I have a motion to go ahead and approve the South Dakota Comprehensive Plan?
So moved.
Any-
Second?
All right. Any discussion or questions for Ms. Kingery? Other than thank you. I know it's a lot of paperwork and appreciate you taking care of that. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. All right, and now we will consider approval of the calendar for next school year.
So when we were looking at the calendar, if we had corresponded with what we've done the last number of years, it would have started, we'd have had our in-service the 10th, 11th, 12th. We had open house the 15th, 16th, we started, we started on the 17th. So we were looking at ways of how, and then where Mother's Day falls this year is the 14th. is the, 14th. So conflict with graduation date as well. So what we're proposing, originally we were looking at going the 15th, 16th, 17th for in-service, open house 18th, 19th. So slide it all back a week. And then starting on Monday, and then I had the NEA look it over and getting things started in the elementary, especially in that first week. Kids really aren't back in the groove yet. The thought was that 5-day, that first week might be tough, so then that's why we moved the start date to the 23rd to sort of ease them in. And there is something to be said for that. The last few years, I've had 3 days that first week. This would be 4 that first week. It makes it so that graduation will be the 21st. We'll be done on the 19th. The only other major change other than the start and the end there would be January 2nd would be a holiday, so we wouldn't come back on that first Monday, and then we would use that 3rd as a full in-service date. And then we did, in April, instead of having early dismissal, we did not have it just because we were at Easter Falls. Otherwise, we had early dismissal Wednesday, come to school Thursday, and been off Friday, so we took that one out. Questions, concerns? Again, we just thought it slides things back 1 week, or it's 4 days technically, it slides it back, but it's in the following week anyway, before we get things started. And the baseball and softball end, also there's a few weeks for families to do, they would prefer to do at that time, so. It's just a little different tweak from what we've done in years past, but that'll be a positive.
Okay, hearing that, would I have a motion to go ahead and approve the calendar for the 22-23 school year?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, please vote by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, I think Mitch is gonna talk to us about advertising for bids on the kitchen commercial dishwasher.
So in the kitchen right now, we have a plate machine that's 1989. Its useful life is actually 12 to 15 years. We used it all of this time, so we got many years out of it, and it's done very well for us. Part of the reason we did want to switch it right away is the plate machine is a really nice machine. Typically, if you run a kitchen from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., you run dishes the whole time, that would plate machine. So we knew when we upgrade, we would go to the same type of machine. We go to more what other schools have for the kitchen. So we got a medical part, just above some specs that we used in Harrisburg as kind of our samples of a very similar machine that they were looking at. But we've had this one repaired. There were times you'll notice in the bills, there's, when they do come up, it's $1,200 to $3,400 each time they come up to repair. There's just not parts and pieces for it, so everything's got to be kind of custom or adjusted. So we're kind of at the point to replace. The funds will come out of the food service fund itself. We do have enough funds in there to do this without having to affect our rates into the future. We go back to the charging, and it's something we've been preparing for a long time, but it is a federal procurement process because it's estimated to be around $85,000 for the dishwasher, another 8 to 10 for plumbing, electrical, with ventilation adjustments on there. So we'll have a notice that we'll put out. I did originally, we had March 8th, we changed it to March 2nd. So I did an update on the site, and we'll publish that if we're approved to go forward, publish that in the paper, and start the process of finding our next dishwasher for the kitchen.
And it should be much more energy efficient too.
Yeah, they said we kind of be amazed at how much less energy it runs. It'll actually be pumped hot and cold. First cycle, we'll use hot water. After that, it'll just run off the cold for the rest of the day. They'll reuse the heat from the steam of the first one. So like now, the current one just runs. We have 3 large hot water heaters that fuel that thing all day. They really won't be much needed after this.
So there's some improvements in
Yeah, there's some
1989.
changes in there, but any questions or thoughts on that? It's been in our board retreat 2 years ago we talked about, but it really hasn't come up much since.
Well, all I'll say is my first year here, I was warned about the dishwasher. So it's been a lot of years we've talked about it.
It's been a great machine, that's why we kept fixing it, because it is a very good machine. I think we'll be very happy with what we're looking at in the future.
What's the date you said of the one we have?
It was 1989.
1989.
It was a good year, 89 was a good year.
That was a good year.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I would accept a motion for considering bids on the kitchen commercial dishwasher.
So moved.
Second, okay. Did that. Steve, I think that was? Oh, it was me. Okay, all those in favor of the motions on the floor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Sorry, guys.
Okay, the next item is to consider trade-in of the 2021 Gale skid loader.
What about that?
4 and 60.
That's what I have in mine. Oh, okay. So mine, I was off the one we worked on.
Okay.
Sorry about that, everybody. So we have, let's see, review of the 5-year capital outlay plan.
Here's a.
Okay, that way. Yeah, thank you.
So it's a 5-year capital outlay plan. That's something we bring each year around this time. It's asked of schools so that we kind of show if we, our taxpayers, our school boards, if there's anything coming up that we're somewhat planning on. What it shows along the top there, it'll show estimated revenue. The 2021-22 is this year's budget. That's our exact budget that we passed. The years going forward, we put estimates in place to show. I use a 1% growth factor on taxes. Typically they grow more than that, but that's a very conservative number. So it'll show how we're funded. The next section down is any of our debts, which are our final payments for our capital outlay certificates. We've been setting aside money each year for our early payment of our high school certificates, which is that certificate number 6. We've set aside about $2.7 million in previous years for this early recall. We'll look to this recall here in August. If we do that, that saves us about $500,000 in interest over the last 10 or so years of our bonds. So we're in a nice position to be able to do that. Then it'll show on there that the DSU agreement, where that starts in year 23-24. And it'll show the state loan program. That's a 0% loan we got from the state for all the energy efficiencies of our renovation. That's got 3 years left or 2 years after this year. And then what's remaining will show what our capital outlay needs are. Educational equipment has to do with tables, chairs, carpets, anything like that. Technology is all of our devices, servers and such. Curriculum is our curriculum purchase, like this year's ELA, last year was math. Operations research is our building grounds, everything into that, HVAC, all that. Transportation is our busing and co-curriculars and all of our activities. So those are just kind of, you'll see this year's budget where we're at, and then just projections out to the future. But what it's really just to show us is what we would have available in the future years. In next year's, you'll see that there's a negative amount. That's because we're using our fund balance, which is what we set aside for the early recall debt to save our interest. And then in the following years after that, we'll fund our normal obligations, and we'll have opportunities for other things, whether it's pickup projects or reduce taxes or some capital flexibility. We're sitting very nice. That's kind of the overall summary of our 5-year plan. There's no adoption to it because this is nothing formal. Each year we'll adopt our budgets as we see, and that's our formal approval expenditure. It's just outlook into the future a little bit. Any questions or thoughts on that?
It looks great.
I mean, we have, not everybody's 5-year plan is as
No.
optimistic as ours, so that's, ours looks good.
And it's significant savings in interest.
It is, yeah.
We're paying that off
Yeah.
early.
I'd just like to make a comment that I think, that puts the district in, as we look at those next 5 years, in a really good position with our capital outlay, and especially when we're able to get those certificates retired as early as we are.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Mitch. All right, get on the right agenda here. Okay, up next, I think, is Mitch again for the 5-year copy release agreement.
So our copy agreement expires end of June of this year. We reached out to our current provider and we gave them the opportunity to issue us a 5-year agreement at a rate lesser than our current one. And our deal with them was if they did that, we would go forward with them without seeking bid. As far as the copier agreements, we don't have to go out to bid because they're here for rail, computer, how's that word? It's one of the exemptions from bidding allowed by state law. So they came back, gave us an extra machine at a lesser amount than what we're paying currently. What I do is I go out to state bids and look, make sure we're getting a good deal on our machines, and we are. And they've been a very good company for us for many, many years. Their service is really, I mean, why you would stay with Coker Machine. Their same tech does the DSU machines, so it's here local. So we were very happy with it. So that's I'm bringing forward a recommendation to approve this. If as a board you don't want to do this process, we can go out to bid for it. I don't know that we'll get better pricing or better service, but I did feel this was a strong proposal. I'd bring it to you with a recommendation for approval. Any thoughts or questions to that?
And not that we've had a lot of service, but we've had it, they're here. Because when the machines go down, it's not a good time. And they're here, and they just get it taken care of.
But one thing that I want to make sure is working is our copy machines and printing machines for our teachers. They need to, they have their certain prep time to do the items, and make sure that they're functioning and working. So we do go with very nice machines.
Okay. And I get a motion to approve the 5-year copy release agreement.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any discussion or questions? All right, all those in favor of passing the motion on the floor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. And Mr. Jorgensen will talk to us about the recommended changes for our back-to-school plan.
Yeah, just like we met back in December with the committee, we met again last week. And we talked through a number of things and it's posted, but the changes we're looking at, you know what? We reviewed this since it started 2 years ago. And so the things we're looking at, we're recommending for a change would be resetting the threshold for level 2, the requirements while in level 2, the handling of in-school close contacts, and the frequency of information provided at level 1 and level 2. So those changes are basically at threshold for level 2 would change from 1.5% to 3%, and at 3% it would just be recommending face coverings, not requiring at that point. Why? Well, we have vaccinations available now for ages 5 and up. We have COVID home tests available for anyone that needs them. But we have in there still, if we get the increase above 5%, we would require face coverings because obviously if we're above 5%, we're seeing a significant surge. So just to give you an idea, when we had it earlier, 2 of the buildings would have reached 5%, but it would have been for a week. Actually been for about 3 days, but we go a week at a time. So we just felt, even though we talked about do we do it at all, there was talk in the community that, you know what, if we're at 5%, we've got to try something. I would hope the surge is done for this year. Okay? It's simply a hope. And, but I think it makes sense that we realize that things are changing with the Omicron, and we're still, anyone can wear them. It's not saying you can't. But we would recommend them at 3%. And again, but if we got above 5, we'd still require them. But there's a big difference between 1.5% and 5% as far as requiring. Close contacts in school. We continue to contact parents so they know that if your son or daughter sit close to someone, they may be considered a close contact now. We recommend you wear a face covering. but we'll leave it up to those folks to decide that at that point in time. Again, vaccinations are out there, we have testing out there, we just feel it's appropriate at this point in time to make that move. We will no longer require temperature checks like we've been doing all along, because anymore, especially with Omicron, that's not even one of the signs more times than not that they have a temp. So, and that takes up a ton of time for our principals and our office staff. I mean, it's a long list they're doing it on. So we would recommend that change as well. Information will be provided, so if we're in level 1 like we are now, we have 2 active cases or whatever it is, we will no longer send out a daily email. I just think that at some point it becomes, they don't even get looked at maybe that much anymore, that's we're in a surge. If we get to level 2, so if we get about 3%, at level 1, then we'd still send it out once a week. Here's what we had for active cases and new cases this week, so people know. We do that weekly. If we get back to 2% where we're starting to see 3%, level 2 where we're at 3% or more, we'll go back as needed to a daily email going out just so people know. Hey, our numbers are starting to go up so that they're aware of it. Again, just feel that there may come a point in time when you get the same email, although we're not sure how much some are looking at it in email. We've said all along we want to be transparent, we want to get information out. But I also think there comes a point now, if the numbers have dropped at level 1, we'll send it out weekly. If we ever get up to level 2 again, we'll send it out daily or whenever we have those cases. So it should be a major change in what we do sent out anymore. Positive cases, no difference. If you're positive, you're out 5 days, and I just like to recommend that you gotta come back, CDC, 5 days in a mask. We do the same thing with your close contact in that house. We can't isolate. 5th day test, you come back for 5 days. So it's not changing that. Those are the proposals that came out of that the meeting, and I guess we would recommend that we move forward with that and put it up for questions. Steve?
So, the close contact notification doesn't have to be a phone call.
Pardon me?
It doesn't have to be a phone call, it could be an email.
We're
Is
gonna
that
make
true?
it be a phone call, only from the fact we want parents to know.
And they won't know if you email?
Well, they may not read all their emails that time unless you have a better record than I do of that. And as we talked, the principals also felt, Mike, felt that it was the right thing to do to let them know. You know, right now with our close contacts, it's not like it's a huge number anymore. It can change, but
Reason being is my angry phone calls, I kind of can trace back to being notified with a phone call as opposed to an email, because to tell you the truth, the people that you make mad, they'd probably be less mad if they read the email, because they get less frustrated at the email than you would at a phone call. Because a phone call, you're like, are you kidding me? If you're already on that side, I'm not saying right, wrong, or indifferent,
yeah.
but if you have that point of view that, this isn't going to interrupt my life, and then you get this phone call, it's like, are you kidding me? You just interrupted my life, and I told myself, it's just, I'm not saying that's the way I am, I'm just giving you the point of view
that's why I asked
that
the
may have
questions.
been expressed to me several times. And so, I think an email might do the same job with a little less angst towards those patrons that might feel angst.
And I think on the flop side, and again, Mike can touch on this too, I think we have others that are thankful that we call them versus an email they may not catch. So
So
catch 22, I think.
if I can speak to that, so from an administrator standpoint, yes, you do have those phone calls. But what I worry about with doing that is I'm gonna send the email, and then the parent's gonna have questions, and I'm gonna have to make the phone call. They're gonna call me, and I'm gonna have to have a phone call anyway. Because they're gonna be like, well, what does this mean? Does this mean that they have to wear a mask? What does this mean? So I would prefer to continue with the phone calls, because then I can answer any questions right at that time. And it's, when you talk to someone, they got the message. Whether or not they heard it is one thing, but with the email, you just never know.
So follow-up question then, can it be that school administrator who has the school district's let's say, policy right on hand and in mind, as opposed to a public health nurse that has no idea what the school's gonna do. And so then sometimes you might get 2 phone calls. You'll get a phone call from the district, and then a follow-up call from the health department, of which have conflicting views on how to proceed.
Anything
And then
that
that's
comes
like,
from-
that brings more confusion to the folks that call me, and then I gotta sort it out. And from now on, I mean, unfortunately, I just refer them to you guys.
Yeah, that's what you should do, because we can't control what the Department of Health sends out.
Yeah, but it takes me a few minutes every phone call.
So you, Steve, are you talking about the Department of Health or our school nurse?
I'm thinking it's our school nurse. And then, or it wasn't our school nurse because I think we brought in some more help.
It's
A
a
few
school
days
nurse,
in.
but they're filling in.
So they would have a kid in the high school,
And that was
and
part
then
of,
they would get a phone call from the elementary school. And so then it's.
when we had our surge, that was right when our school nurse went on maternity leave. And we had new people in here who were trying to figure out the system, and there was some miscommunication at times. I think we've gotten that all straightened out.
Okay, that's good. I was just
Yeah.
wondering, and I'm just saying that
You're right, there
I
was
don't
some,
know if
there was some mixed messages that went
the conversations
on.
that happen to me are accurate or inaccurate. I'm just trying to sort through it all as well, and I'm trying to help.
Yeah,
You know,
and-
because we
and,
don't want to give mixed messages, because then
Three
it
that
doesn't.
are filling in have done a great job, but it's,
Yeah.
it's not like we have the same person fills in, it's 3 different ones that the hospital's providing.
And then there's
for us.
communication, so once I've been called, I don't get called again. Because if they get,
I
you know,
will
then it's
never-
like,
I can't promise 100%, but it should be that way,
okay.
you know?
Because if, like I said, if their attitude or decisions are already made up, and it's made up, you know.
More times than not, the calls in the middle school and high school are coming from principals, I think it's safe to say. More times in the elementary, they're coming from
The only time that I can think of that a second call would need to be made is if the school nurse is following up for a rapid test, which will not be necessary anymore, because
Yeah.
we're not gonna require masks for close contact, so there's no need to test out of the mask. That's what sometimes different principals would say, the school nurse will be in contact with you to schedule an appointment for your rapid test. So that's where you might get a couple phone calls.
Yeah.
That would be necessary with this
To
policy.
defend, I mean, I'm just saying that to defend you guys in the sense that the healthcare itself, I believe, is giving out as many mixed messages from what my research has like brought about. Because I'm like, okay, well, let's find out what it actually is. And then, so you go to the people that we're listening to, and all of a sudden it becomes a little bit cloudy on it, how it fits their schedule as well. And so the whole thing is lacking a little bit of consistency.
It's been that way since day one.
And so if we could improve that as we go.
And I think that, I will say, I sat back and watched a lot of it, and I think that our school has done very good at trying to keep up with those changes that have happened as best they can. I would say, and I have said to people, you need to be patient. You need to be patient, and that would be my recommendation to parents who call me and say, complain
Yeah.
about any of this protocol.
But
This
definitely
is
voice their concerns,
They
absolutely.
can voice their concerns,
Because
but
it's
in a
good to
respectful
have that.
fashion
Yep.
to our administrators.
So,
It only makes us better.
Yep,
And I think this change is a good change.
yeah.
We're seeing it happen a lot of places now where the change is coming because we're hoping the surge is going down. And again, when we talked about this in December, there wasn't support to move to this. There was in the committee to do this now, where we're at, so. I think it's a positive and I think it's a good move, but we'll monitor it. If we see something that isn't working right with it, we may be back in, what's next month?
Yeah.
March?
Yep.
That suggests another change. I mean, we've said all along that we'll change as we need to as we move forward. So I would, again, this was the committee's recommendation. I think it's a good move, and I think we're in a good place right now, knock on wood. And, but we'll continue to monitor. Again, if you feel that at level 1, we need to still send out the emails constantly, we can do that.
No, I'm not saying, I'm saying less emails. I was just reading this thing and it said that they will be notified. So, I don't know, maybe I read it wrong.
As far as if they're close contact.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so when you have a student that's, you've determined whether,
well,
there can be a
notified
whole
might
bunch
be
of
a better
rules.
one
So
than
then
saying.
follow-up questions on, well, how did you determine the close contact? And then it's like, and so then you start getting into the logistics of how the close contact's determined, and then it's a whole ball of, you know,
Just so you understand, there can still be a close contact that we don't recognize, but the health department does because of where they were at
sure,
outside of school. We have no control over that. Ours is just gonna be, if this individual all of a sudden tests positive and you three are sitting within that 6-foot radius, those would be considered your close contacts. We'll let those folks know just so they can watch and see if their kids have these symptoms. Does that make sense?
sure does. But if the kid's wearing a mask, then you can't be close contact.
If they're both wearing a mask. I'm just going by what's in
I'm
place.
just asking
If
questions
they're
that have
both
been
wearing
asked
a
to me,
mask,
so I'm
if only
just-
one's wearing a mask,
Yeah,
it's 6
concerned.
feet according to what's out there.
Okay, sounds good,
So,
whatever, move
I-
on.
again,
Move on.
I think it's a
I'm
move in the
fine.
right direction, I hope.
Yep, yep.
And, I said this from day one when the committee met, and I said it again, I think the other night, no matter what we do, someone's not gonna think it's right. And we're trying to do what we feel is best for kids and for staff. A year ago, staff didn't have the opportunity to be vaccinated, they have that now. Don't have to be, but I was really worried about staff last year when the Delta was coming through. There are things out there now, and it's people's choice if they want to get those or not, and I feel we can make this change, and we'll monitor. If our numbers all of a sudden start going through the roof, then maybe something we did isn't right, we'll come back with another recommendation, so.
Plenty of rapid tests.
We have plenty of rapid tests. We do, yep. We have plenty of rapid tests, and that's coming now through, the state doesn't have as many, but it's coming through federal, so we do have rapid tests. We were wondering there for a while, because it was a ton of tests that were going through when we went through our surge. I mean, we had a lot of, in a 3-day time, we had 60-some positives, and we had a lot of that going on. We have the ability for at-home tests, pretty much as many as we want, so if parents need them, they let us know, and we send them home. And that's good, because I think if they can see that sooner, that someone is, then they keep that from spreading too. So we want that. But yeah, they're readily available.
Okay, could I get a motion to go ahead and approve the recommended changes for the back-to-school plan?
So moved?
Second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
I just want to echo what Lori said. I think the district has done a phenomenal job. As you look at what other districts either have stopped doing or never did, I just kudos to the way that our administration has taken this. And yes, we had a surge, but I don't think our surges were as big as, if you compare what our ratios were during that surge compared to where the county was, I think we did a good job of mitigating things within the district. So very pleased with this, and I think this change is very realistic. That 1.5% was just a number that we grabbed, and as we look at it now, I think the 3 is very realistic, and the 5 with that second level in there for mask mandates makes good sense.
Okay, anybody else? All right, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. All right, now to talking about considering a trade-in. 2021 Gales did loader,
So,
which is a great deal.
Lake County International, they treat us very well. Every time they have a skid steer that they rent out, a Gale skid steer, and when that sells, they then trade us a brand new one, take the one we've been using, and they rent that one out. And so through this program over the years, we've had a new skid steer for many, many of the years. It's usually at least once a year they do this for us, and at any point when they stop, we'll just carry our skid steer out into the future, but it's very nice that they do this, and we do all the first 100 hours of maintenance on it and try to keep it in very good shape. But so we're really appreciative of them doing this for us, and we do this to record it in our asset list, and also to thank good program for us.
Very much so.
Absolutely. Okay, could I have a motion to go ahead and approve the trade-in? Second? Okay, discussion, comments? Again, say thank you to Lake County International. It's definitely part of the community supporting our school district, and that's what we like to see, try to do. So all those in favor of the motion on the floor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, and I will go ahead and declare us into, or, excuse me, yes, first of all, we need to, have a motion to go into executive session, sorry.
So moved.
Okay. Second?
Second.
All right, thank you for doing that. All those in executive session, please vote by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion